Hi everyone, it's Kaylee Bateman here from Mixing Light, and today I'm absolutely thrilled to be talking with Abe Wynen, who's a colorist in Toronto, Canada. And I feel like it's a little bit of local knowledge that you meant to drop the T in Toronto. Although, correct me if I'm wrong, Abe.
That's correct.
That's correct. Yes. It's like I live there. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for joining us. Abe is a incredible commercials colorist, and he's also one of the founders of the brand new Canadian CSI chapter. So Color Society International is now in Canada thanks to Abe and is it Wade Odlum who was heading it up, or Eric Whip?
Eric Whip. Yeah, but those guys
Ah,
are pretty much in tandem over here with Alter Ego. But thanks for having me. Yeah, it's great to be able to jump on the Mixing Light pod.
that's so exciting. So the last time we spoke was a few years ago, and I was on my way back to Australia, and you were actually heading over to Canada. So I feel like we've passed the baton between us at the airport, perhaps on the way through. How's it going over there? Are you freezing? What's going on?
I've been frozen and defrosted a couple of times now, but I was absolutely terrified when I first spoke to you before I came over, and have overcome a bunch of challenges and started to really settle into life here. Really made a bunch of awesome friends, and yeah, I've worked with some really great teams. And so yeah, it's feeling really comfortable now.
Oh, that's so good. That's really fun. We've actually changed places a little bit as well in terms of where we're working, because I was working over in Canada previously and you were working with Crayon. And I joined up with Crayon at the start of the year, or the
You
very
really
end
did
of
pass the
last
baton.
year. We literally did. Ships in the night. So we were very nearly colleagues.
So close. Maybe
But you
maybe one
are
day. Maybe one day stars will align.
Yeah. You're definitely a topic of conversation every now and then. Everyone's really in love with the grades that you've been doing, that we've been seeing on Instagram, and you're remembered very fondly. So your name does come up all the time. So I feel like we're
Oh.
we're buddies.
How was your experience when you traveled to Canada?
I think it was a fairly different experience to the one that you're having. I was in Vancouver instead of Toronto, so I was warmer, much warmer. And I think it only snowed once, but it did rain a whole lot. But yeah, I think it was quite a different thing. I went into long form visual effects coloring over there, and I had been doing a lot of features as well as commercials over here, but I'd come up through commercials in my formative coloring years. And so going into really high end long form was a big change for me. Whereas you've just gone from strength to strength in finishing color. So you were doing beautiful commercials in Melbourne with Crayon, and now you're doing beautiful commercials in Toronto. So I feel like it's a bit of a different experience there. Because I kind of like did a little bit of a divergence to the left, and learned a whole bunch of stuff that was a little bit new to me. Whereas you're polishing and refining something that you're already extremely good at in Melbourne. And we've been loving your work that we've been seeing. It's really good stuff. So you're the
Okay.
senior colorist at Red Lab. Did you go over with that job already lined up?
I did. It came as a bit of a surprise, actually. I was going to move to Vancouver with my wife, and a few months before heading over, a friend of ours, also a colorist, Sam Howe, sent me this job posting and said, "Hey, there's someone actually in Toronto, other side of the country, but they're looking for a colorist." So, sure enough, yeah, it was better to have a plan than not one at all, and we ended up moving to Toronto. But yeah, been at Red Lab now for the whole journey, and gave like a they've got a really amazing facility there and real supportive team. So yeah, we've managed to really hit some great projects out of the park there.
That's so good. And when you talk about the team, do you have assistant and, obviously like there's producers and client services, and is there like an in-house editor? What's the scope of the facility?
Yeah, the facility's quite large. There must be around 43 of us there, and there's assistants,
Wow.
producers, and there's a sound team and online artists. Yeah, the scope is quite large. I find it's much bigger scale than what I was doing in Melbourne when it comes to like the team I'm working with. I was always in smaller boutique facilities or just freelancing back in Melbourne. So that has taken some adjusting to as well, but has just so much of its own flair and fun.
Yeah, it's a different kind of beast, isn't it? I mean, you must have been so self-sufficient going in there and then did you had to hand off parts of the process to people as you went?
I sure did. I sure did. But I also love not conforming my own projects and things
Ah, it's
like
so
that.
beautiful. Yeah, I've got to say, there's nothing better than arriving and everything's set up for you. And the first thing that you do with your fresh mind in the morning is think about the pictures and what you're going to do with the grade instead of like, you know, I've got to get it in and that shot's not linking and what's the time code. And you've kind of used up that fresh coffee brain that you would rather spend doing the creative stuff. So, yeah, I totally
Yeah, it
agree.
kind of
It's a
goes to
lovely
show
thing.
just how much of a team effort it really is to kind of juice every little bit of creativity out of the project, really.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And do you have like a editor that hands over, comes and says hi and says, oh, we were going for this, or the director liked that in the edit or whatever?
Yeah, in the commercial world, here I find it's pretty hands-on. The editor will come and sit in the session and you'll have your creatives and an agency all there with you. And it's nice to be able to be working with, yeah, a room full of people, especially after the whole COVID years, and be able to just connect again, and yeah,
Mm.
collaborate. I do love the remote grading, don't get me wrong, but there's nothing quite as nice as having people in the suite with you.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I know, but I feel like they're both good in their own ways. Sometimes it's nice to go like, okay, I don't need to like worry about anything from my shoulders down because no one's going to see it. And, I can have a messy desk and I can have 10 coffee cups off to the side and just present this nice little remote view of me. Yes, I'm put together. When you have people in the space, it's all hanging out, isn't
Yeah,
it? But it's a
it's
special magic when
it's
it
very
comes
true.
together.
Yeah, and you can just kind of
So,
stand away from your desk as well and just have a take a deep breath. But when there's lots of
yeah,
people in the room, sometimes you feel like you are kind of on stage and you can kind of just be there for too long.
totally. I know it's at the end of a long session, I sometimes just go, I don't ever want to talk again. Like I'm
Yeah.
going into a silent monastery. I'm going to take a vow of silence for the next 10 years. And I remember having an assistant who I was training up, and the first time I stuck her in a room with some boisterous clients and left her there for the day, yeah, it was really refreshing to see someone else in the same boat. I was like, oh, it's not just me. It is a lot because you have to entertain
Yeah.
everyone. You have to like, do what I call a hairdressing thing where you're chitty chatting, but you're also like, not just having a chat, but you're madly like working away at the same time. Yeah, it takes a lot of
Yeah,
left brain, right brain.
it sure does.
What's the suite setup like in your suite? Do the clients, are you sort of behind a desk with the clients in front of the desk, or are you on the same side as the clients? Like, can they see everything, or are you hidden away?
Yeah, well, when I first arrived at Red Lab, we had a setup where I was the clients were in front of the desk, and there was a bit of an open plan in front of that. There's a TV and a projector, and everyone was kind of huddling in front of me. But about a year in, I decided to change it up and push the desk to the corner, and that way I could have everyone behind me. And I like just having that open plan so I can just spin around and actually have a chat rather than try and look over the top of all the monitors and gear on my desk. But I just find that a lot easier to connect with everyone in the room. And that's what I did back
Mm.
in Melbourne as well. I just love to be the evil villain spinning around on the chair and talking about what's happening. Um, uh, yeah,
There's one place that I work at that has the monitors and the desk between me and the clients, and I find that the monitors form like a perfect soundproof barrier as well. Like you've got the Sony and then the two GUIs, and it's like between the three of them, you're really like I can't hear a word that's going on. And I like to hear all those little sounds that come out when people are like, oh, I like that. You get a little happy sound sometimes, or if they're really unsure about
yeah.
something and you can see their face and the eyes kind of narrow and you get a little grunt and you think, all right, they're probably not going to say anything, but there's something about that shot. And then you can kind of use those cues to hone in on how they're feeling, which I suppose is another good thing about having them in the room with you, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's all the subtleties of just communication that you can, have your finger on the pulse.
Yeah. And so you were doing a lot of commercials and cool music videos and short films in Melbourne. Have you continued that same sort of spread of work in Canada?
Yeah, yeah, I sure have. I mean, the short form and music videos are still very much kind of where most of my work is based. And music videos are just a big passion of mine. So I've made it, I've made a big effort to stay connected with everyone in Australia who I was working with and can work remotely. But have also,
Right.
just brought that passion to Canada and connected with a bunch of new people that, are also in that kind of digital playground of music video world and, making some fun, vibey stuff.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, the one that I saw recently that I loved was Gordo featuring Drake. It was called Healing. And I actually watched that today, of all days. And it just looked like soft but luscious, beautiful skin tones, lovely handling of darker skin tones. Was that a Canadian client or is that a Melbourne? I never know.
Yeah, that's Canadian. That's Theo Scudra, and he is a fantastic director. He works really closely with Drake and the OVO kind of crew. But it was really interesting working on that one because it was a documentary as well. So trying to create that fun music video feeling without making it too hyper real and actually leaning into this just the nice kind of subtleties of the light. It was all shot in South Africa, so it's
Oh,
just so
wow.
beautiful leaning into environments I don't typically get to grade.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, like you're on like the other side of the world where you are. I'm sure that the local work that you're doing has different light in it as well. But then South Africa again is just another level of abstraction there. Have you ever
Mm,
been, or were you
I
just working
haven't.
off references?
Yeah, just
Every
working off
photo I see of
references.
South Africa is beautiful.
Definitely helped that Theo was there and had shot the music video as well, so he could
Mm.
definitely guide me.
I felt like it had like that beautiful European look of the soft, chalky grey blacks, where it's like the
Mm,
very bottom of the blacks are a little bit compressed, like the knees come down, but the very bottom has come up to meet it a bit. And that, like, it's got a beautiful contrast curve, but then it just, the roll is so kind of soft and charcoaly in that lower end. And then, yeah, the highlights are so smooth and creamy. Was that something that you did with a particular contrast curve that you developed, or was part of that in the lighting? Like, I suppose how much of that was grade and how much of that was light?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I always love to just use curves to generally trim up the grade at the end, and also have another curve at the start of my node tree that is like an initial input. Um, but I'm always experimenting with different tools to try and emulate different effects. And that chalkiness and just black levels is something I'm definitely trying to hone in on, particularly this year. I think in the past, I have just been trying to lean into some pretty heavy contrast and poppy worlds. I think being a commercial colorist, you can tend to swing into the small details and make everything quite sharp. Where now I'm doing a little bit more long form and narrative work as well. I'm trying to break these habits and molds and see what good things I can take from one world and bring to another.
Mm.
And yeah, that the the healing video was a really great example of uh, a project that really motivated a kind of softer, chalkier look. And the lighting definitely does help in some of those scenes, but others, it was also just trying to find ways to massage it or fight it to be consistent throughout the clip.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly wouldn't be a look that would work on like something that had been shot at midday in Australia. So having
Yeah.
a little bit of softness to the light to help the grade along's got to go places. But yeah, I know what you mean about like fighting some shots, trying to get some smooth gracefulness into those shadows when there's quite a bit of contrast in there. It's almost like a defocusing. I suppose with contrast comes focus. So yeah, if you can, I don't know, somehow make that curve really, really gentle and graceful. Yeah, it's lovely. I didn't pick up that there was anything that had been wrestled into that. So good job. There's often one shot that'll cause you grief and give the game away, but there was nothing in there.
Oh, lovely.
And you mentioned your node graph setup having a curve to come in and a curve to go out. So just a couple of things that leap out to me from that. You're working in Resolve and you
Yeah.
worked in Resolve previously. So you're stuck in the Resolve world. And has your node graph changed at all since moving, or have you kept the same approach?
It's constantly changing. I feel like I just have a database of just a million and one setups now, but everything is very specific to camera and if it's long form or if it's commercials, music videos, and they're all just modular basically so that it will be more adaptable to whatever the format is I'm working on. And even those are always refined depending on what kind of tools I'm leaning into or what the flavor is of the month. I try to constantly do new things really to see, um, how I can kind of change up what I'm doing. But there is definitely a staple kind of node tree that everything is kind of built around. And that's very much the similar kind of process that I was taught predominantly by Dan Stonehouse at Crayon.
Oh, well, if
And
it's anything like Dan's, there's a lot of nodes in it.
there's a lot of nodes in it, but the long form one, I definitely have to shrink it down because there's no time in the day um, to be using too many nodes. Um, But yeah, it definitely has changed. I think when I first arrived in Canada, I didn't know anyone, so I had a job, but and they had their clients and everything already, but uh, I was still pretty quiet because no one knew who I was at all, and so I had quite a lot of time on my hand to just revisit my old node tree and kind of make it a little bit different and um, yeah, kind of just reorganize everything, which was really a really precious time actually to be able to dip back into the theory and think about how, yeah, I wanted to, um, yeah, kind of create my own process, and
That's
I've
awesome.
kind of just ran with that now because it was like a good 6 months where I could just experiment and bring in all the sample footage and look at different projects as well that Red Lab had worked on and just see how small changes in that tree will motivate you to use different tools as well. Um,
Mm.
and the way that you can set things up, you can make things feel more filmic. You know, if you're using a CST to like go to Cineon and whatnot, and using specific LUTs as well to then transform it. There's yeah, a million and one ways to get all of these different looks. Um, so that's where the big database of setups have come from. But yeah, I'm generally still using like maybe four different node trees. Um,
Wow.
yeah.
And do you get a chance before the client arrives to have a little play and see what kind of comes out? Or do you just look at the footage really quickly, assess it's going to be this node tree for this footage and this camera, and the client's in and you're going? Like, do you ever get a chance to backpedal?
Yeah, I always try and give myself an opportunity to um, have a bit of a experiment and play with the footage before client arrives. Whether that's in the calendar or not, I'll have to try and get to work early just so I can have that time because I think it really is precious to be able to yeah, have that luxury really, and it just gives me a whole lot more confidence. I think when someone walks in the room to be able to have a bunch of ideas from the get go,
Mm.
and be able to then discuss that with them. And if you already find if there's a few issues you can talk about or their concerns, then I feel like that is great to get those roadblocks out of the way earlier than later.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's really clever. And like a little bit of sacrifice there goes a long way towards having a really great day, you know.
For sure. Yeah, I
Um,
can enjoy my
and with
coffee.
Totally. And with repeat clients, do you find like you've got a bit of shorthand down and you think, I kind of know how this person likes to do things, or is it really project dependent?
It's definitely project dependent. Um, it's funny that how I think there is a bit of a trial by fire with a lot of new clients where you don't have
Mm,
that trust yet, and um, they really do want to see how um, like your scope as an artist really and what you can do with the image, and they'll throw a few curveballs at you and things like that, and you're like, oh, who's this client? They're really breaking my back today. And then the next day they arrive and they're just like, okay, I know what you can do now. Just do whatever you like. Oh,
right,
okay.
you winning the confidence. You think they're
Yeah,
throwing those curly ones at you just to see how you react,
I think
trying you
so.
out.
Yeah, but
You might be right.
once I have that trust with yeah, those uh, repeat clients, like they really do just give you the floor to do your thing, and they count on you to speak up when you do find something is not right. It's something I definitely have learned a lot about. just coming to Canada where every client's suddenly a new client.
Yeah.
And that was a whole transition as well, because when you're working in your hometown where you've kind of grown up and your whole career is developed there, there is a confidence I think that you have. It's like playing guitar on the one stage your entire life, and suddenly when you move, it's a completely different crowd, and you there that feeling that you have on stage, your confidence and everything can kind of go one way or the other. It's just more nervous. And so I think when I did move here, it took a little bit to kind of warm up again and kind of find like that confidence and then be able to speak much more openly in the suite too. Once I kind of got over that initial transition, I feel like it was, yeah, much nicer to just be grading in that commercial world, because it is I have noticed it feels just bigger. There's a lot more people in the room in Toronto, I find, on the jobs I've graded here than there was when I was in Melbourne.
What do you mean by that? Is it like bigger creative teams, more agency people, or is it just bigger in terms of there's like more breadth of variety of different clients?
Yeah, there's just more people. It just feels. I think the I'm doing more broadcast TVC work in Toronto as well than I was in Melbourne, and so there was also just a kind of step into another kind of uh, bigger commercial world when I moved here. So it all
Mm.
just took a bit of adjusting um, to.
Yeah, another commercial that you graded that I watched recently jumps out to me, which is the one for Google. I mean, you've done some big clients over there. That had a bit more of a poppiness to it than the music video that we were discussing earlier. It was just there's something about your colors that are so clear. There's so much clarity to them. They're clean colors. There's beautiful separation in there. And when you've got that gorgeous color separation, as well as that beautiful contrast and that strong black and the poppy whites, I don't know, there's just something like it just leaps off the screen at you. So, can you talk to me about the process of grading that one? Because that looked amazing.
Yeah, that one was a lot of fun and quite VFX heavy as well. So
Yeah,
that
yeah, lots of
also brings
transitions.
in a whole different kind of ballpark, yeah, of challenges. But I think also gives you a lot to play with when you have all these different mats and everything to work with. You can
Oh, cool.
pipe them into your tree and find where that perfect balance of color separation lies. So it really does give you that depth that you're looking for, and I'm glad that came across.
It really did. So was that one where the visual effects had been done on the ungraded plates and you were given the visual effects with the mats as opposed to like 25 layers from offline that you had to sort through and match?
Yeah, yeah. So all the VFX were done, and it was supplied as
Great.
an EXR. Could just plug in some mats into the node tree, and away we went,
Ah, that's the dream.
isn't it? Yeah, if only it was that easy every time.
And when you're working, I mean, obviously you've got lots of different approaches. We just discussed that. But when you're working, especially with visual effects, do you work color managed or do you build that color management through LUTs and CSTs?
I generally build through LUTs and CSTs in the commercial um, space. But when it's in long form, it's all properly color managed.
Through like the project level color management settings?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And do you have a
Um,
preference? Do you enjoy one set of settings over another?
I I don't really have a preference. No, I think it would be
Oh,
nice if it
agnostic.
was. Yeah, it probably would be nice. I think if there was like just a strong enough pipeline for like you to do through your project settings. But there's also something fun about being able to use CSTs and do it on a node-based level. And some of my kind of node trees really do lean on that kind of color space management to achieve like desired looks and things as well. And that's where
So are
my
you
comfort
going
really
in?
is.
Sorry, I
So,
talked over you there. I was going to ask, are you going into certain color spaces to do certain operations and then out again, or?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm jumping between certain color spaces so I can um, do like noise reduction as well. And I think my comfort really does lie in using CSTs and um, my approach from the commercial world. Um, so it is, it's just easier.
Do you have a preferred noise reduction? Do you like neat video or do you prefer Resolve's inbuilt?
I'm a sucker for Nate video. I love Nate video.
Same.
Yeah, it just juices my computer, but it's worth all the pixels.
Absolutely. I was having a conversation recently with some colorists about where they're applying noise reduction and at what resolution, because I was using neat video in Baselight and my cursor was in HD and I got one result, and then I set my cursor to 4K, which was my output, and I got a different result. And I thought, that's interesting. And I had another shot that had a resize on it, and the resize was at the bottom of the stack. And when I rendered, I got a really crunchy output, and I went, oh, what's going on there? So I moved my resize before the noise reduction and I got a much smoother result. And I thought, interesting, because in Resolve, I'm not really thinking about exactly what resolution I'm applying my noise reduction in. And then it turns out that other colorists were, and it was just me having a bit of an oversight. But do you do you set up your timeline to the source resolution when you're adding noise reduction, just out of curiosity?
Um, I I generally do have my timeline in my finishing resolution, um, but I don't. I definitely don't do that every time, especially if it's slowing down everything too much, or if I'm using too many plugins and things like that. Then I'll just have it in HD, and then I'll have to shuffle it around at the end to bump it out properly. Um, but yeah, that is definitely just a funny downside because I also, I'm using it at the very front of the tree. So if I um, am using like a cache, then um, I can still grade after that node, and everything doesn't like reset as um, it
So,
doesn't
so
do
you
a
would
full
node
reset.
cache.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that helps.
Yeah. I might be the only person in the world who didn't think about the fact that it was a spatial effect and you change the relationship between the pixels, and of course you get a different result. But
No, I
anyway, it
made
was a
that
fun thing
mistake
to
too.
experiment
It's
with.
I think everyone made that mistake. They're just not telling you.
Okay, great. It's
Yeah.
not just me. I'm the only honest one.
Yeah.
Need to get a bit more
Yeah.
sophisticated. Oh, that's interesting. So I find that I don't do all of the fancy CST jumping through color spaces that you do generally, unless I come up against something that I really can't do in RGB. But I do use the node gamma occasionally, and usually for noise reduction, um, because you get far less. You have to do far less noise reduction in linear.
Mhm.
So are you going into linear and then back out again for your noise reduction?
Yeah, yeah.
Of
Yeah, I'm
course you are.
using
You're doing it all the right way.
but I also found that in Resolve, I feel like I was. I don't know if when I'm using the gamma option on the node, if it was giving me the same effect.
I don't think it does. I think I'm doing it the dodgy way, but I'm still
Right.
happy with the results. So,
Yeah. It's. I think I'm sure it is still doing the same thing, but I just noticed that when I changed the gamma on my nodes and then put it in highlight mode, it doesn't. It's not changing the color space the same way as when I using CSTs to change the gamma.
and when you're in highlight mode, are you talking about like how it's picking, or are you talking about
Yeah,
where
you
the
can.
mid gray is sitting?
I think it's showing you the mid grade. It's just previewing, yeah, where that node is, like the current state of that node in your tree. I yeah, I'm sure it's doing the same thing. Those nodes.
Who knows? I think at the
Who
end of the
knows?
day, in the short form world, we're in charge of the output and we don't have to do any crazy hoop jumping for different deliverables. So it is
Mm,
what it is. But long form wise, obviously, there's like graded archival masters and textless deliverables and all of these bits and pieces that are specified by the studio that have to be in certain color spaces. So, have you done much of that sort of work where you need to work color manage like Dolby Vision or provide a graded archival master?
I haven't yet. No, I've it's the all the long form work I have um, been a part of has been pretty relaxed, but
That's
still
nice.
using like just a color managed workflow through my project settings and LUT based, just so I can be in that world and adapt to what will be Dolby Vision and everything down the line.
Mm.
But it's something I would love to do. That's for sure. Um,
How do you find the pace differing between long form and short form?
it's it's a big adjusting to at first, uh, but I think once you find your stride and just know how much time you have per shot, you can get into a different kind of rhythm, and you know what to prioritize and stop seeing the tiny details like you would a commercial and learn to move on. See just the things that are actually important to the image and in a storytelling um, like way as well. And yeah, if there's something you missed, you can try and pick that up on the second pass. But I think it's just so
Yeah.
important to just get it out there as quickly as possible. But there is a like a strong pipeline like two in long form. I find that with the episodic work I've done anyway, there's been show LUTs and everything that take a lot of the guesswork out of the grading process, so you can
Uh,
get through it quicker.
I got you. So is that something that you're developing or is that something that you're being passed because the DPs found the show lot that they want to work with?
It's something I try and develop with uh, the productions that I'm part of, and something I'm definitely trying to sink my teeth into more as time goes on. But definitely don't get yeah that opportunity every time.
Mm. Yeah. Do you ever get past a lot for a show and go, oh dear, this lot. All right, we're going to have to make it work under this.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Sometimes you get a magical LUT too. You're like, oh, this LUT's really good. I do better
Ah!
than this.
There's a few magical lots going around town in Brisbane, and they end up on the cameras and they go around that way. So someone will hire a camera that's got a magic lot on it and go, "Oh, I found this great lot on this camera on this last job. Now I'm going to use it for everything." And I've been
Right.
past the same lot by so many different people and so many different jobs. I'm like, "Oh, guys, come on." Gotta get some variety out there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of dangerous.
Aren't they just? But when they work, they work. And like you say, it takes some of the guesswork out, and especially if they've transcoded their offline footage with that LUT, because whether or not people mean to, I think 90% of people will fall in love with that offline look or just think that's how it should look. And then you start going really outside of that and they go, oh, but it just doesn't feel right for some reason. It's like, yeah, because you just spent 12 months looking at it a different way. So
Yeah,
being able
demoitis.
to replicate that. Yeah, demoitis. But like, why fight it if they like it? Like, if you know how to work with the LUT, you don't have to be constrained by it. You can just take it on and go, okay, that's your creative decision. And I'm going to do the best possible, best quality pipeline that incorporates that. And then everyone's happy. You don't have
Mm,
to throw it out.
yeah, exactly. If that's the way that they intend the story to be told, you have to work within that as
Yeah.
well, hey?
Yeah, I know. I feel like there's always a struggle in my mind um, when I'm given a LUT, especially if it's something that I haven't developed myself. I go, oh, kind of feels like I'm cheating a little bit.
Mm,
But I think the skill is in using it in the way that you want to. And, being able to unpick it if it's not working in some situations. Um, yeah, I'm just kind of giving myself a pep talk there. Sorry, it's not really a question.
that's good.
So you have a series coming out later this year, don't you? A scary one.
I do. It's a very spooky one. It's Tales from the Void. It's a 6-part horror anthology.
Oh, love a
And
horror anthology.
yeah, it was a great project to be able to jump into because every episode is its own story and leans on a slightly different look. Still, I guess, the very genre specific um, to horror. All this, because there's so many different types of horrors as well. So they
Mm.
they were finding specific periods and everything I could kind of lean into. Um,
Oh, that's awesome.
and yeah, it was great fun. Lots of
So,
VFX too.
oh yeah, I bet with like blood and gore and all of that.
Yeah,
Um, so tell me about how you work with references then, because if you have, because, again, it's one of those things that's hard to say, it's hard to talk about without showing it, but I know exactly what you mean by different types of looks for horror, right? Like you've got the really desat, bleach bypassy look that some horrors just made for, and then you've got the really saturated B movies of the 80s, like the real schlocky, bright red blood and there's just
mm,
so many different vibes. You've got those really dark, gothic-y, blues and the blacks, pink skin, moonlight vibe ones. And I think TV's had a big influence as well. There's been a lot of like supernatural television that's um, a little bit more lit than films that, then becomes part of another genre again. Were you passed like a different lookbook or stills for each episode?
yeah. There's always a collection of stills, as well as their lookbook that they had kind of created for in pre. So it was nice to be able to dip into all of those and just be able to have that conversation with them as to what are the defining kind of characteristics of that look that they like, and that's what it was. It was just talking about saturation and contrast and what details that they did really want to highlight in that episode, whether it's the blood or the makeup or the phones, and there are like very techie episodes as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, because it's always a matter of like hiding certain things. Like, I think there's a lot of fear in not knowing where the thing is and then just revealing it at the right time. So what needs to be in the shadows and what needs to
Yeah.
be visible for that shot. I always laugh when it's meant to be like a scary moment and the camera pans over and it's like, I wonder where the murderer could be. And then you see like a really well lit reflective building in a clearing under the moonlight. And you're like, well, clearly they're in that. Come on. Like, try to hide it a little bit more. But you just know that's a network note. Like, I can't see the building. Where's the murderer?
Yeah, yeah.
Brighten it up. And did you have a lot of conversations around what color blood was, or did it change per
Yeah.
episode?
Um, yeah, it was always make the blood darker. I found like just make it
Yeah,
darker.
yeah.
Um,
Bring those reds luminance down. Were you
yeah,
working in Resolve 19, or were you still in 18 on that one?
still an 18, but we worked with the A35, so I feel like it's the perfect camera for blood because the reds
Really?
really do have just a little bit more latitude.
Oh,
So
good.
it was really great to just work on that camera and lean into all the different looks.
You would have had a lot of range even in the shadows to play with.
Yeah, yeah, it's gorgeous. And some of the
And
texture
what?
packs as well.
Oh, tell me about the texture packs.
Yeah, the inbuilt texture packs, uh, just able to give you a little bit of texture, I guess, without having to apply your own grain. But also, I find when you're using the ES mode, which is like the internal noise reduction, when they're shooting in very tough lighting conditions and using quite a juiced ISO, they can reduce the noise and then use the texture packs as well to um, keep some uh, some texture in the image in a really,
Yeah, I know
I
what you
guess, like
mean.
subtle way.
So it
I
stops it from getting that plasticky feel because it kind of like dithers.
keep seeing your cat jumping around everywhere.
Oh my
It
goodness,
was on
what's
the
she
back
up to?
table.
She'll do that. I'm
So
surprised
cute.
the dog hasn't jumped on me too. I've got two cats and a dog in here all vying for attention.
Aw, little farm.
Mm, it is. And then my 3.5-year-old's in bed, so it's normally an absolute zoo.
That's great. It's a beautiful house.
B, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we're just in Queensland, and normally I do these interviews in my studio, but it's nice to do one in my home. We've been
Yeah.
doing it up a little bit since we moved in when we came back from Canada. So thank you for that. It makes me feel nice. But yeah, I know what you mean about those texture packs. Initially, I was a little bit like just wary of strong textures being applied in camera because my thought was, well, if we do it in post, we can keep it very uniform and we can apply the resizes prior to the texture so we're not resizing the grain. And, if we want to push or pull an image, we're not going to be bringing that grain with it. We can have an even contrast to it across the board. But I also, yeah, I mean, I just love this idea that it's taking away from that negative of the noise reduction with the high ISO because that's always been the big problem with these high ISOs, especially on ARRI. Like I think Sony with the dual ISO on the Venice actually kind of does a better job there in the low light.
Mm,
Although ARRI C4, that's a great curve. So I've only worked on stuff that was quite bright on that camera. So I'm really not talking from a place of experience there. It's quite interesting. I'd love to know what your weapon of choice is for darkening blood. Do you go to like the Pixel Tools hue shift, or do you do a curve, or are you using a LUT with a deep red in it? How are you getting that red down?
yeah, I'm always trying to use the just the hue versus satin and luminance curves to begin with, and just seeing just how far I can take everything. Um, Only a little bit before it does start to break. And if I do see it start to break, then I'll try and find another tool to then, juice it a little bit further and just see what combination of tools they can use to get to the desired effect without making it break. It's always just leaning into just a big show bag of all of everything. I find that's the benefit of having a node tree with a whole lot of nodes.
Oh, I feel like the color slice tool would have been a great weapon for that one. Are you on 19 now?
No, not a 19 yet.
Oh, because it's
Yeah,
still in
because
beta.
yeah, we're all in Linux as well, and it's a big studio. So
Ah,
there's they once they do one machine, they have to do all the machines, and they're doing a lot of TV um, and network shows. So if something
understood.
goes down, then yeah, everyone loses their mind.
Yeah, no, I totally understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a good idea to lock it down if you're halfway through a series. So, how many colorists are there at the studio?
There's four colorists. So
Wow, that's a big
yeah,
team.
it is. Yeah, there's two senior colorists that are predominantly our long form guys. Uh, that's AJ McLaughlin and Walt. I forgot Walt's last name.
Oh,
And then there's me and Eric. Who are our commercial colorists. What's his last name again? I've forgotten. That's bad.
that's
I feel like
okay.
my brain's turning off now. Even
Oh
though the sun's risen,
no.
I'm just like, oh gosh, I
Do
get a
you
bit
have to
lost
get
for
to
get a
work
bit
at
lost
some
for
point?
words. No, I don't actually have a client today, so I'm pretty
Oh,
much chilling. Yeah,
okay, good. Didn't want to keep you if you needed to get in.
no.
Um, what else? I had so many things to ask you. Oh, yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about starting the Canada chapter for the CSI? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I had a really great experience in Melbourne with the CSI community there. I just loved having a community that I could go to and lean on people to talk about all my color grading interests. And when I came to Canada, I just didn't really find the CSI community at all. And that's because I found out it didn't exist. But there is a big community here, and I wanted to just find a way to bring everyone together and just experience all the same joys that I had in Australia with the CSI community. And so a few emails later, I managed to organize everything, and yeah, we're all catching up now, which is really great.
Oh, that's so good. I suppose if you can't find what you need, just make it. Very creative.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I hope I can start to do some more workshops and things like that down the line, and just try and make color grading as accessible as possible. I know, yeah, mixing light, kind of a perfect example of that. It was actually through mixing light that I learnt most of the fundamentals back when I left university and was a video editor, just wanting to color grade. Um, so yeah, if I can just give
Yeah.
back in some way, um, then yeah, I feel my
That's
job is
so
done.
lovely. That's lovely. I mean, I definitely credit Patrick's tutorials as well. Like, I really, really enjoyed them, and I came across them at a point that I really needed them. And beyond Patrick's course, I also remember really fondly there was a great tutorial on beauty work that was like, showing how to sharpen pupils and sharpen lips and add contouring and darkness next to the nose. And everything that I learned in that moment, I could apply the following day. Like, it was just really cool to have access to that. So I totally agree. Those tutorials were great. And I think it really does bridge that gap when you're a freelancer or you're a junior and you don't have that big network in a facility to, go and say like, oh, can I sit next to you and just watch how you do that? Like, it's very, very cool to have access to that. And it's good to have access to high quality curated stuff as well, because, YouTube's just a wild country. So it's nice to know
Mm,
there's a certain standard there, right?
definitely.
So what sort of workshops can you see yourself doing? And, you don't have to stick to these and we can cut it if you don't want to.
Yeah,
But
I definitely would love to host like a color grading for commercial workshop, and just show everyone what my process is, and just break it down and uh, just talk about the challenges that I've faced in the color suite and just how to adapt to those. I think, yeah, someone who can just break everything down for you and just be a valuable resource even after the workshop to just hit up and ask some questions to just give everyone a little bit more confidence to jump on the tools and get grading.
oh, that's so good. Well, you might find that you have a few people hit you up on Instagram after this comes out, knowing that you've got a interest in mentorship, because I think, yeah, it's super important and a lovely thing to be able to give back and share that knowledge. It's such a nice approach rather than clinging on to your secrets. I feel like there's not many secrets out there anymore anyway, so might as well be generous.
Yeah.
And do you have anything coming up that you're particularly excited to be jumping on, or is it all hush hush as these projects tend to be?
What are we jumping on? I'm pretty
If you're
hush hush
anything
at the
like me, you
moment.
compartmentalize.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I everything's all hush hush at the moment. There's nothing I can really, yeah, talk about out loud. But
Oh, well, I have to watch with interest and see what comes up.
yeah,
And where can we find your work? I mean, I stalk you on Instagram. You have a great Instagram account. But you also have a website, don't you, which is abewynen.com. Sorry,
yes.
abewynen.com.
Yeah, it's all a lot of it's on abewynen.com, or yeah, my Instagram has all the stills in the world.
Do
But
you have a process for picking stills? Because I find that really difficult.
uh, yeah, I try not to think too much about what stills I'm picking now because you can spend so much time trying to curate it and uh, yeah, making social posts. So I just jump through. Either when I'm grading, I'll leave markers for any of the shots I like, and at the end I can, yeah, just save them straight away.
Oh, so you do it directly from your grade project.
Yeah, yeah, or I'll bring the master
Uh,
back in and then just do it from that same project. Yeah,
yeah, I'm always so nervous about grabbing stills from my grade project because I worry that they're going to do something in online that won't be there in the grade. And if I then put that out publicly, especially if it's like automotive, I would never grab something from a grade if it's a car commercial. Um,
yeah, yeah. But if I
but it
have
does
the
take some of them. Sorry.
if you have the markers on the timeline, when you bring the master in and all the online stuff's done, it's you can just
Then you know where you want to go
yeah,
and you've done the
yeah,
hard work of looking at it. I think that's
yeah,
clever because also the time passes and you forget. And when you're right
yeah.
in it and you're looking at it, that's the best time. I love that. That's really
All the
cool.
tricks. There are no secrets.
Absolutely. And do you have a favorite playlist that you like to listen to when you're grading, or are you a quiet working person?
Yeah, I love to listen to music. I just have music playing all the time. The one that I'm really into at the moment, it's called Soul Coffee. It's on
Is it a
Spotify. It's just
Spotify? Soul
yeah, and it's
Coffee.
just all these great soul tracks. And I find everyone just sinks in the couch and is in a good mood when I play Soul Coffee.
Oh, great. I'm going to try that one out.
Yeah, it's such
I
just
got
a
put onto some
client-friendly
real weird
playlist.
stuff, and I love a client friendly one. Someone put me onto this like super weird, I mean, really great, but it's Mr. Bungle's band when Mike Patton's not around. It's called Secret Chiefs 3. And I've been listening to that a bit recently, and it's so frenetic and it jumps through so many genres that I think it just puts everyone a bit on edge. So I think a bit of soul coffee would probably be a good
Soul
antidote to
coffee's
that.
relaxing.
I once got accused of playing death metal in a session because I was playing Faith No More.
Oh
And
well.
I didn't think it was very metally at all, but the
Yeah.
client apparently told the facility afterwards, like, oh, the grade was good, but she was playing death metal. I was like,
Oh
I
no.
was not. But music's
That's
pretty
so
touchy
funny.
stuff, right? It's pretty
It
touchy
is.
stuff in a grade.
Yeah. I find now I'm working with, yeah, just more like a bigger rooms of clients. I'm a little bit more sensitive to what music I'm playing. Like I always used to
Mm,
just play my like songs, but now I'm really conscious of making it client friendly. Otherwise,
mm,
yeah, that energy just isn't there. Everyone starts to just start talking between themselves and whatnot, not focusing on the grade
mm.
or something.
Do you ever try to work out based on how your clients look what they might like to listen to?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. They always come with their their flair, but I love to talk about music as well, so you can always yeah just get what music they like out of them pretty quickly. And I like to just even get them to choose what they would listen to, and then I'll try and divert us to something that I think they might like.
Yeah, I find that a good way to find out about new music that I've never heard of. I ask people
Yeah.
what their favorite band is at the moment, or if they're listening to an album they really like. And most of the time, it's something I've never heard of because it's super cool. And it becomes my new favorite. And I play it for that month straight.
Mm. Yeah, you gotta love music. When there's no
Yeah,
music in the suite, it's a bit too quiet.
it sucks the air out, doesn't it? It sucks the
Yeah.
air out. I don't know how sound people do their jobs without being able to listen to music all day. I just think I could never do sound. I need my 10 hours of music a day.
Yeah. Your Spotify minutes at the end of the year will just be super juiced.
I know. Does your Spotify rap tell me who you are or who your clients are?
Oh, I think it will always tell you who I am at the end of the day. 'Cause I'm
What was
still,
last year's top listen?
oh, last year's top listen, it's always Interpol. I just love Interpol.
Oh,
Just like a warm blanket.
good choice. Yeah, good
Yeah.
choice. Good choice. One year I was John Williams.
Oh,
So I
really?
kept listening to the Jurassic Park theme songs.
It's,
Just that soundtrack's so good and it makes
it
everything
is a good
epic.
one. It's very visual as well.
Yeah. But sometimes, you'll be grading a yogurt commercial and being like, this, might be a bit much. uh,
Anything that
um,
inspires.
totally. Sorry, I got really into the weeds there on the music. But it is such a big part of what we do is running that room and, you know, Um, do you have any tips for aspiring colorists that you would like to put out there?
Any tips for aspiring colorists? Yeah, I think it's about finding the work that you would like to facilitate and go out there and look for all the other artists that are creating that kind of project and be that big support that I think they need to make the most of um, that opportunity and that story and make it as pretty as you can make it. And yeah, just keep on going. Keep on just trying to find people that you want to work with and have fun.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in that, just being resilient and getting back on that horse over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. Don't
Um,
stop. Got to keep on grading. Just got to find
yeah.
the material to grade. That's the tough bit. But I find, yeah, as soon as you find something you can fall in love with, like for me, it was music videos, and I can just grade music videos time and time again. And I think because there is that music element, and that music is so strongly tied to the color suite as well. It's the
Mm.
best of both worlds.
Do you listen to the track when you're grading it?
I do at the start, and then I have to mute it because I'll go crazy. But then
Yeah.
I always indulge at the end. I feel like it really does bring it all together, and you can,
Yeah.
just see the
I
clip
think
as
it's
a whole.
important. Yeah, I think it's important with anything, like even a commercial, to pop the sound on for that final watch because I'm always at the moment looking out for doubling up on meaning. And unless you're really trying to drive something home, the sound and the pictures don't need to necessarily tell a same story all the time.
Hmm.
So putting the sound on can sometimes tell you when something's getting a little bit cliched and needs to pull back a little bit, or if it's not hitting hard enough, maybe the pictures need to go further there. Although without the final sound mix, at least with the music video, you know you've got the final sound mix.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
Yeah, for me, that love is, I think, short films. I can't get enough short films. I just love them. And
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
why, but they're just contained little islands and,
that's
you know,
such a
you can
beautiful
tell a
way
big
of
story short.
describing them.
I love them. Love them,
They
love
are
them.
fun.
I just conformed one today that was shot on 16, which I'm excited to be grading tomorrow. I've seen more and more film getting shot in Australia at the moment. A lot of people are working in 16 and even 35.
Mm.
But 16's, I think, a little bit more accessible still for the developing side of it and doesn't need to be sent on an aeroplane, which is a bit scary. How's it in Canada? A lot of people shooting film, or is it mainly the high-end digital cameras?
Yeah, mostly the high-end digital cameras in Canada, but I do see a lot of film being shot. I'm just not working on it. I think it is just which artists that you're working closely with, and
Mm,
a lot of artists here I am working with are commercial directors and cinematographers, and um, in Australia, I was just doing more music video work there, which was more film and shorts as
mm.
well. Um, but yeah, I can't say they worked on lots of 16 or like lots of film here. Um,
Mm.
I meant to have a 35 project that might be coming through actually. Um,
Oh, that'd be great.
so that'd be nice. Someone came up to me at a party recently and like, I'm going to get you to create this project on 35. I said, don't tease me. Just send me the email.
So when you do a film project, do you find out what profile it's been scanned to? Like, do you know whether or not it's a Cinean scan or what the tone curve is? Because I often find that's the elusive bit of information over here.
Yeah, I never get told. But I always, most of the time, I treat it as if it's just an RE, like log
Mm,
C3 or log C.
mm,
And there was a guy who was, he scans, they have a scanning and processing facility in Toronto. And I heard him saying at one of the colorist drinks that they just profile everything as if it's RE. I was like, oh, okay. So I,
great.
I'm glad I've been grading it that way. uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I
mm,
suppose it depends on the actual equipment that they've got as well.
yeah.
But I think there's like, I'm probably talking well out of school, but I think they've got a fair bit of control over whether or not it's log or linear or somewhere in between.
Mm.
people that I've spoken to have said that they often will just create their own curves for film projects because none of the CSTs ever are the right ones. None of the gamma
Yeah.
curves are ever the right ones. So they're always just doing a telecine style grade as opposed to a color managed grade.
Yeah. Yeah, my node tree for that's I have a completely separate node tree for film, and it is just the most basic, like 6 node kind of structure, and it is just lift gamma gain curve and contrast saturation, maybe like a LUT creative LUT. But yeah, it's never like going through CSTs and profiling it as if it's like an RE camera or anything like that. Yeah, I always, I call it the KISS method. Just keep it simple, stupid, and it just always gets it to look, like the look. It's already there. All the hard, like all the
Yeah.
beautiful little details. I find if I try and do too much, it starts to, just go down the wrong path.
Mm. Yeah, it's more about revealing what they shot as opposed to adding a bunch of stuff to it.
Especially because I find a lot of teams, they'll get their scan as well and they'll bring it into Resolve, and they will just put contrast and saturation on it and be like, oh, this looks exactly how I want it to look. And so
Mm.
when they bring it into the suite, it is it is kind of this what they've been seeing by just doing the very basic controls, rather
Mm.
than doing anything too fancy. Um, yeah.
Oh, well, I think I'll let you off the hook on that one. That was so good. Thank you so much. It's just been such a pleasure to chat with you, Abe. Um, I can't wait to see what you pop up on Instagram next. It's always beautiful. And I'm like, well, that's got to be the most beautiful one yet. And then the next one comes out and I'm like, oh, look at that one. So, yeah, definitely saved quite a few of your grades into my little saved store in Instagram to refer back to later and go, I want to make mine look as good as that. So, yeah, congrats on all your hard work is definitely paying off. You're doing beautiful stuff and giving back to the community, which is just a beautiful thing. And yeah, can't thank you enough.
Well,
It's
thank
really
you so
great.
much. Yeah, it's very sweet of you to say, and thanks so much for having me. It's been lovely to have a chat.
Such a pleasure. All right, for Mixing Light, this is Kaylee Bateman. See you later.